Hi, my name is Talia, and this is the story of how my own family tried to erase me and how I made them regret it. When I stepped back into my father's house after all those years, I thought I'd feel warmth, familiarity, maybe even comfort. But instead, I felt nothing. The house smelled different, sterile, polished, like a hotel pretending to be a home. The walls that once echoed with laughter now felt cold, almost judging me for coming back. Daniel and Vera had changed everything: the curtains, the furniture, even the scent of the garden my father once cared for. There was no trace of him left, or of me. I walked through each room like a stranger in my own memories. My childhood still lingered in the corners, in tiny ghosts. A height mark on the doorframe, a faded painting Dad and I had made when I was 10. But even those were covered, painted over. It was like they'd tried to scrub me out of existence. Daniel met me in the living room, wearing that fake, polite smile I remembered from my teenage years, the one that never reached his eyes. Vera followed close behind, dressed perfectly as always, holding her teacup like she was auditioning for some aristocratic drama. When I asked about the house, Daniel laughed. Not kindly, not even nervously. Just a sharp, cruel laugh that made my stomach twist. "Talia," he said, "you already signed it over years ago." "Remember?" I blinked. "What are you talking about?" He shrugged, pretending to pity me. "You were 17. You signed the papers after Dad's funeral. You probably just don't remember." My throat tightened. I did sign papers that week, but they'd told me it was a formality, something to help with estate management until I turned 18. I was grieving, confused, and desperate for family. I trusted them. Vera set her cup down, her tone icy but calm. "You were unstable then, Talia. It's understandable you'd forget. You were emotional." That word, unstable, hit me like a slap. It was what she always said whenever I spoke up as a teenager. But this time, it didn't silence me. "I didn't sign away my father's house," I said quietly. "I know what you did." Daniel's smile faded. "Watch your tone, little sister." And then, he leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You were never meant to stay here. Dad didn't want you running this place. You don't belong in this world." His words felt like knives. That night, things got worse. I tried to pack my things to leave, but Daniel followed me to my old room. His face was red, his hands shaking. He started shouting and saying I was ruining everything, that Vera was embarrassed, that I should have stayed gone. I tried to walk away, but then he grabbed my arm, hard, and shoved me. I hit the floor. My head spun, the world tilting sideways, the cold tiles pressed against my cheek. I remember hearing Vera's voice, soft, almost trembling. "Daniel, stop. Please." And then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. A nurse told me they'd brought me in claiming I'd fallen down the stairs. But the bruises didn't lie. Neither did my gut. While lying there, I realized something. I had lost everything: my home, my father's legacy, even my name on paper. But I wasn't going to lose myself. When the nurse left, I asked for my bag. Inside was an old notebook, the one my dad had given me when I was 16. It had his handwriting on the first page. "Never let the world rewrite your story." That line, it saved me. Over the next few weeks, I started digging. I requested copies of legal documents. I searched for old emails, letters, anything from my father. And slowly the truth started to unravel like a thread. The papers they made me sign, the signatures didn't match mine, the witness listed didn't exist. Daniel and Vera had forged everything. They hadn't just stolen my house, they'd stolen my history. But I didn't confront them right away. I stayed quiet. Sometimes revenge isn't about shouting, it's about patience. I spent the next year rebuilding, emotionally and mentally. I got a small job, rented a cheap apartment, and worked with a kind lawyer named Mrs. Patel, who saw something in me I didn't see in myself. When I showed her the forged papers, she didn't doubt for a second. "We'll get them," she said simply. Mrs. Patel helped me track down old witnesses from the funeral and even an old employee of my father who remembered that week vividly. Slowly, piece by piece, the truth became undeniable. But I still wanted to do it my way. One evening, I sat scrolling through social media and saw a post that made my heart stop. Daniel and Vera were hosting a charity fundraiser in my father's house. My house. The same place where they'd broken me. The same place where my father's portrait now hung behind their perfect smiles. That was my moment. I decided to end it. Not quietly, not violently, but truthfully. I spent days preparing. Every letter, every document, every photo. I put them neatly in a folder labeled The House of Lies. The night of the event, I wore my father's favourite colour, deep blue. The house glowed from the outside, laughter spilling out of the large glass doors. I could see people dancing, toasting, admiring Daniel and Vera as if they were the perfect couple. I walked in, heads turned. For a second, Daniel's face froze. Then he recovered, that fake grin sliding back into place. "Talia," he said too loudly. "What a surprise." "Surprise," I said, my voice steady. Vera looked pale. She whispered something to him, but I was already walking toward the center of the room. The crowd quieted. I placed my folder on the table and said clearly, "You erased me from paper, but not from life." The silence that followed was electric. I opened the folder and spread out the documents, the proof, the forged signatures, the bank transfers, the witnesses. People leaned in. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Someone asked, "Is this true?" Another whispered, "She was the daughter, wasn't she?" Daniel's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. She's lying." But before he could finish, Vera grabbed his arm. "Daniel, stop." Her voice trembled. "She has proof." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not anger, fear. I turned to the guests. My father built this house with love. They built lies on top of it. I'm not here for pity. I'm here for truth. And with that, I walked out. The fallout came fast. The next morning, their fundraiser photos disappeared from social media. Then came the legal calls, the investigation, the whispers. Turns out Daniel's business wasn't as clean as everyone thought either. The forged estate papers opened the door to a deeper audit. Within weeks, their perfect empire crumbled. But the funny thing is, I didn't feel joy watching them fall. I just felt free. One day, I drove by the old house. It was empty again, quiet, peaceful. Through the window, I could see dust floating in the sunlight. It didn't hurt anymore, because I realized something important. The house was never really my home. My peace wasn't inside those walls. It was inside me. A few months later, I got a call from Mrs. Patel. "The case is done," she said. "You're officially recognized as your father's heir again." I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. "Thank you." But I didn't move back in. Instead, I sold the house and donated part of the money to a foundation helping young people who've lost their parents. Because I knew what that kind of loneliness felt like. And with the rest, I started over. Truly over. Sometimes I still think of Daniel and Vera. Last I heard, they moved away, their names whispered like a cautionary tale in our old town. Maybe they regret it, maybe not. But I don't need their apology anymore. Because the day I walked into that fundraiser with my truth, I didn't just reclaim my house. I reclaimed myself. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, remember this. You don't always have to fight with rage. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is living well and letting the truth speak louder than their lies. I'm Talia, and that was my story. The day I finally came home, not to stay but to set myself free. If Talia's story gave you chills, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen karma catch up to someone who thought they'd won? Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this. Stories of betrayal, truth, and the power of standing tall again.